News Now.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Nerd News Now, where we're going to talk about very timely stuff like Baltimore Comic Con and other nerdy things.
Mm-hmm. And Diamond Retailer Summit and all of the things. Like, I brought my Retailer Summit notes with me to the show.
Oh no, Brainy's stuck in a loop. That's a new feature.
Max Headroom Brainy.
That's pretty good.
So, no, the show was good. It was long. So there was a coin and currency show also in the convention center.
Those people are fun.
But the problem is that you couldn't get into the hall where they were, like even to walk over to the hall where Baltimore Comic Con was, because of the way they had it secured. Like, you had to have a badge for their convention to get into the main doors of the convention center.
Dude,
And
that must have hurt their turnout.
I don't think it did. There were long lines every day to get in. And long lines of guys holding cases that I'm like, if that's not some sort of machine gun, like, you know, and security guards the size of small houses.
Yeah.
Like,
for coin shows, it's serious. Like for the one I set up in January every year, they let dogs loose on the sale in the convention center overnight. And then they have a patrolman on the outside. But those dogs,
it was wild. So we thought we were staying 3 blocks from the convention center and a straight walk to the front door.
Mm-hmm.
We were in fact 5 blocks from the convention center because it was 3 blocks down and 2 blocks over.
That's where we usually stay. That way you get to walk by Camden Yards every day.
Nope, other direction.
Oh, really?
We stayed off Charles Street.
Oh, that's right. You didn't stay in the Retailer Summit hotel.
No, the only people who stayed at the hotel where we stayed was us and Greg Land.
What an interesting choice.
And then the hotel next to us was everybody that was with Comics Wellspring. They were at the Lord Baltimore and we were at the Monaco, which kind of share an alley.
Mm-hmm.
So cool. We go to breakfast and there's the Comic Wellspring guys, like in the Lord Baltimore Cafe, which is where I went every day for breakfast. And guys like Dan Price and other people who print with Comics Wellspring were staying at that hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd run into Greg Land and his people in the lobby of our hotel.
Tell everybody that's watching, but what is Comics Wellspring?
They're a comic book printer. There were independent people, independent creators can go and have their books made.
Are they located in Baltimore or where?
They're Detroit.
Detroit.
But they were the sponsor of Artist Alley.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, they had a big presence at the show, sponsoring a lot of the Artist Alley stuff, the independent stuff, for sure. So, it was cool to see them. And then every night the party was at the Sheridan Bar, which is a Morton Steakhouse, and then like a bar above it that's the Oriole Bar. And so the plan every night at the end of the show was just get there and scope out your table and then just don't leave.
Just hold on to it for dear life?
Well, because if you leave, you will lose your chair.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's so many people up there. And it's like you're standing there and, oh, hey, there's Garth Ennis. And, hey, there's Jim Starlin. And, oh, hey, there's Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. And, oh, hey, there's... And then... Well, I didn't realize I was having chicken wings in the presence of, like, a Mount Rushmore of comics.
Uh-huh.
So, that was a good plan. But I spent a lot of time... I did spend a lot of time there hanging out and talking to people and networking. Don't get me wrong. But we also had a really fun time because I spend a lot of time in Baltimore. And, our friend Enrica is also there.
Mm-hmm.
Taking people to Baltimore places.
I saw you got Dirk to leave the convention and go to the Poe House.
I took Dirk and Drina to Poe House and to the grave at Westminster Hall. Which is funny. Dirk wouldn't like me telling this story, but Dirk got all religious. Like, Dirk's not a religious person, but like he's at Poe's grave and he's like kneeling on the ground and praying and like I'm like, are you gonna kiss the stone right now? Like, what is happening?
Can I give you like I'll just out myself for until I met you, I really thought Westminster Hall was in England.
Yeah, no, well, it's named after the one in England.
Yeah.
Also Anglican, similar style light, similar style windows, like inspired by.
Mm-hmm.
But yes. Yeah. But no, like then we took him to the Annabelle Lee Tavern, which is a Poe themed restaurant for dinner. We went there with Dirk and Drina, me and Enrica, and Matt Slay and his wife.
Okay.
I had never met Matt before. He's great. And then last night we had a great big group who went to a place called Michael's, which is my favorite restaurant in Baltimore, because they have a 40-ounce prime rib.
Oh my word! Is that one where you like if you finish it in your lifetime you get it free?
No, it's still $100. But no, it's $60. It's $60.
Oh, that seems reasonable.
Yeah, it's really not bad. I had a 60-ounce prime rib with mushrooms, a drink, and some sides, and it cost me like $100. But it's my favorite place. It's my favorite restaurant in Baltimore because it's a little hole in the wall that if you didn't know it was there, you'd never go there. It's in not a great neighborhood, not a bad neighborhood, don't get me wrong, but like it's not a great neighborhood. And it's 20 minutes from the convention center. So unless you knew it, the con people would never go there. So the people we went with like got to see parts of Baltimore they wouldn't otherwise see and got to go experience a Baltimore place that isn't just the 13 little places around the convention center. And so we went there with like Afua Richardson and Fabrice Sapolsky and Henri and I and Enrica and some folks from Hero Initiative. So
like so much fun. So what do people do at Baltimore Comic Con? What is the theme? What is like if you were like saying, okay, I'm going to choose between 3 cons this year. Why Baltimore?
The thing that people seem to do from Baltimore Comic Con is walk back and forth between the convention and the hotels. Or at least that's what it seems like I did all weekend.
Okay.
Of course, I don't think most people schedule meetings for the whole weekend offsite.
Yeah.
I made the mistake of trying to conduct the business of the experience and the business of my business and go to a convention all in the same weekend. And I'll be honest, every muscle and bone and joint in my body feels like I've been hit by a tank.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing about Baltimore is that it's a comic show.
Yeah.
Like their big guests, they had 4 voice actors who are Disney voice actors. But like Veronica Taylor might be the most well-known voice actor, or female voice actor there. And she was Ash Ketchum.
Oh, baby.
Well, and then their one big celebrity guest is still a pretty big comic guest.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was John Leguizamo, who has written Devastator for Image Comics, part of the Spawn universe, and has written books and is a big comic, been in comic book movies and that kind of stuff. He has
an Image book right now.
Right.
PWX.
Oh, that's true. And he was signing a lot. They had those there. He was signing a ton of them. It is a comic-centric show.
Mm-hmm.
You go to a lot of conventions, and you have to walk past the hordes of people who are only there to see Captain America or whatever. And that's fine. That's part of it. But this is a show where their big celebrity guests are comic creators that you love.
Yeah.
So that's what's cool about Baltimore. Like it really is a creator-driven show. There's a lot of good vendors, but it's creator-driven.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I like Baltimore. It's why I would pick Baltimore. I didn't get to go to the Ringos, but I got the Ringo swag bag anyway, so it worked out all right. But
I heard that there were some mistakes made in the guest list, that it wasn't just like nobody's like you and me that couldn't go in, but there were like some famous people left off?
Well, like I know that they had to negotiate to get some like of the guests of the show into the room,
Hmm.
and maybe play a little bit of hardball with some people. I don't know how all that went. Like, I was asked if I wanted to go. Like, I know there was room at a table that a friend of ours had, and I was asked if I wanted to go, and I kind of said no. I'd rather go sit and wait for everybody to get out and see who leaves early.
Oh no, the walk of shame.
No, play the game of I couldn't sit there anymore,
Hmm.
and see who, or, to see Garth Ennis come in the middle and be like, I need more alcohol, you know.
Doesn't he have a tube of alcohol just flowing? He has an IV tube running.
Correct, but it was insufficient.
Ooh. You
And I
should.
tried to watch the stream online, but the audio for the stream was messed up, so there's like a high-pitched dog whistle sound in it.
Uh,
And I'm just like, oh. But I heard it was a good time, but like the thing about it was swag bag was so heavy this year. People who flew couldn't take it on the plane.
oh wow.
So like Henri and I brought a couple back for our friends, like, because I drove. So we just put them in the back of my car, and then we'll distribute them to our friends who had them later.
So the news that I saw of the Ringos was that there was an AWA book that did really well. Not All Robots.
Not All Robots, which by the way already won the Eisner.
Yeah.
Like it's going to win a Harvey. It's going to win so many awards this year.
And then Eric Powell won big for what Eddie Gein done.
Mm-hmm.
So mad props to him. Those are the only two that I know. I didn't
and
see the rest.
Stan Sakai cleaned up as always.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it was, the kind of the books you expect to win one. You can look at that list this year in particular and say, oh, okay. I was talking to Dirk about the category he was in and the books he was nominated against.
Mm-hmm.
And the analogy he made is that he's the guy who's on the dream team, but he's on the bench because they have Michael Jordan. Right? Like, Not All Robots is Michael Jordan this year.
Yeah.
It's going to win everything. But Dirk was good enough to make the team.
Yeah.
And that's something to be said. Like, this year you can look at it and say, oh, there's an amount of work that has come out in the last year that is really raising the bar for comics.
Mm-hmm.
And they got nominated and they won. So
yeah. There's an Aftershock book that I'm 100% certain is going to sweep this next year. That Seismic Press book. It's got to sweep. Every single person I hand it to is like, this is going to win all the
mm-hmm.
as long as people have read it.
True. I mean, but then there was actually a big announcement related to Eric Powell and Albatross Funny Books at Retailer Summit.
Is it more about the Goon development?
No.
Oh.
So at Retailer Summit during the Dark Horse presentation, it was when was Dark Horse? Hold on, I have to flip here. Breakfast page 2, lunch page 1.
Dark Horse is buying Albatross.
Not exactly. Dark Horse, under their banner, are launching 2 new imprints: Albatross Funny Books.
Okay.
And Dogu Press, which is Stan Sakai.
I like this pairing very much.
Right. So now those books will come out from Dark Horse on these imprints, as opposed to those necessarily being independent publishers.
Okay.
Yeah. Most of the Dark Horse presentation at lunch was just them showing future Hellboy covers. Like the Mignola verse is going to get huge again.
Yeah.
And they were showing a lot of those covers, but that was a lot of their presentation. They weren't actually there. They just sent a video.
Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting the kind of turmoil Dark Horse has gone through in the last 3 years, where they've lost a few licenses, and they're getting them all back supposedly, right?
Kinda. I think it's one of those things that some people went and tested the water and found that the grass wasn't always greener.
Yep.
If I'm allowed to mix my metaphors like that.
Yeah. Conan's not coming back to them. It's going to Titan.
Yes, Titan announced Conan. And I have to say it, Conan the O'Brien, because that is my catchphrase as it relates to Conan the Barbarian. I did a whole CBSN show one time where I was selling Conan books, and it wasn't until after the show that I realized I'd been saying Conan the O'Brien the whole time.
The whole show.
Yeah, I hadn't noticed. But no, so I mean, if you want me to walk through some of these notes, there was some interesting things that were announced.
Yeah, because this is there's never been a more timely news show than someone coming right back from Baltimore and being able to.
Now, if it takes me a minute, just know that my note taking looks like that of a doctor who is also vaguely a serial killer.
No.
So I may have to decipher my own chicken scratch here, but so one of the things that we've done on the experience is we put a real onus, and not real onus, it's been a directive from day one that we're promoting Comic Shop Locator.
Yep.
40,000 people a month use Comic Shop Locator.
That's perfect.
Like, I thought there would be a big number, but I did not imagine it would be that big. Because once you know where your local comic shop is, do you really need to use Comic Shop Locator?
And this is after having already searched something like Google.
Right. That's exactly it. So, it's a good thing to, keep putting in people's minds that it exists and that they should use it.
And the question, I mean, from the tech perspective, how many of those are unique users, or is it 40,000 unique users that?
Well, Brainy, you know as well as anybody that 90% of statistics can be made to say 100% of whatever you want.
I don't think it's 90%. I think it's more like 85.2%.
Sure. So, I mean, this is a number that was given by Diamond's digital team. So, like, I don't know, 100%.
I mean, I again, not trying to knock the statistic there, but it's very questionable. 40,000 people per month is a lot, considering Google has the same information available, and it's easily accessible. And not just Google, things like Yelp has it as well.
I think if you put in Comic Shop near me, Comic Shop Locator comes up first under SEO.
Does it really? Yeah, let's try it.
Yeah.
Brainy's gonna drive the bus. Go.
I am.
I'd also really honestly be interested in seeing what that number was pre-experience.
I kid you guys not. The first result I get is our store.
Yeah, that's called cache data.
I know. In fact, you know what? Let's do
I'm
this.
just giving you a hard time. No,
let me actually do it in a clean browser.
Well, but that was the other thing I was going to talk about, is that if you're one of those people in an area where comic shops, there isn't a lot of proliferation like there is near you, Brainy, I'm guessing that's where these hits come from. Right? If you're in a major city and you're searching for a comic shop, the SEO is going to lead you to a real comic shop. But if you're somewhere else, if you're in Nebraska or something, I'm guessing that's where a lot of those hits come from, right?
Yeah, because right now it does show up on the list, but it's like 6th, 7th down.
Right. Right.
Of course, we are still number one.
Hey, That's because you've done the hard work of search engine optimization.
Yeah,
Or you
SEO
paid
is still
Google.
a bunch of BS.
Or you paid Google. Either way, I'm good with it. So first up at breakfast was AWA and Axel Alonso. The big things that they announced, they did announce a real heavy stack of books, but they have 5 projects at AWA that are actually in production, not in development, that are actually in either the phase of final script edits, principal photography, post-production, or they're ones. There's some that are in the very early phases of animation. The first things he said, he kind of led you to believe that you'd start seeing announcements on release dates towards the end of 2023. That, you know, these things were still very early on, but that they were not in development. They announced a book called Red Zone with Cullen Bunn and Mike Diodato, and a Dan Panosian, and Dan Krause, and Ethan Sachs. Garth Ennis is doing a book there called Ribbon Queen. And Jeremy Holt, our friend Jeremy Holt, who will be on The Experience very soon to talk about this book, is doing a book called Gatsby, which is a Great Gatsby reimagination in a modern times with an LGBTQIA tinge that really investigates what is the American dream now for people. So,
I want to be a billionaire.
kinda, yeah. Ethan Sachs is doing a book that I want to see what happens with it. People are either going to love it or they're going to feel bummed out by it. Called Climate Crisis Heroes, which are stories of actual people battling climate change.
Oh,
As told in comic form. It
I
could be very interesting if it's done well.
like informational things. I'm about that.
Right, but it could also, if it gets preachy, bum people out. So I think Ethan Sachs writing it is maybe good.
It's basically Captain Planet of the modern era.
Mm-hmm. So after them, there was a company called Battle Quest Comics. Yeah, they had a couple of books that they, that were kind of already announced. They didn't really announce anything new. It was all stuff that you would have already had the FOC or had gone through that process on.
Sorry, is BattleQuest an off-brand of another publisher, or is it a brand new publisher?
They're their own thing.
Really?
But I think they used to be with somebody. Jen, do you remember?
I interviewed them, but I cannot remember. I don't remember them bringing up that they were with somebody.
Right. No, they're totally independent now, but I think the people who are running it used to work with somebody. And for the life of me, I can't think of who it is.
I think everyone's used to work with somebody at this point.
Yeah, sure. But after them was Saturday AM. They are partnering with a company called Quarto Group, Quarto, to kind of be their publishing wing. Saturday AM was founded as an app that you can subscribe to and read manga from a very diverse new generation of manga creators from all over the world, Africa, Europe, the US. Very few or no Asian creators creating manga for them. So it's diverse manga-inspired comics or straight-up manga. Apple Black is the one, which is their big title, is the biggest selling independent manga in the world. And then Jay Oden's Hammer is second, and we had both of those guys on the very first Virtual Cadets Con, and we had them on the EXP Expo the first year. So, it's good to see those guys doing stuff. Since partnering with Quarto Group, they have 11 titles that have been gone into print since June, and they'll have 15 more next year. as well as they're launching a set of in-store initiatives and in-library initiatives and things where they can bring creators to you, and then provide marketing and other kinds of budgeting for, kind of teaching kids about manga.
So clarify for me, are they going to be printing in manga form? Some?
It
Maybe.
sure looks like manga, but it doesn't read like manga.
Okay.
So it reads right to left, front to back, but everything of it looks like manga.
Okay, so the size is the digest size of the manga.
Yes.
All right, well that's fine.
Yeah, it looks like a Viz book or a Kodansha book or whatever, except it reads the American way.
Okay.
Yeah. After them was Titan. And they talked about principal photography happening on Gun Honey television. Their manga line really has some really interesting things coming up, including the 15-year anniversary re-release, reissue, and remastering of Afro Samurai.
Oh snap! I need all.
They have a. Yeah, they do. They have a book, Adam and I don't remember the next word. It may be the beginning, Adam Beginning, which is an Astro Boy prequel.
Oh.
And 2 Kamen Rider books. Kamen Rider Muso, which is FOCing now, and Kamen Rider 01 by Brandon Easton, that I think also FOC'd this week.
Perfect.
They have partnered with Dead by Daylight, the video game, and they're doing a Dead by Daylight comic. The game has like 70,000 daily players. And the comic is going to include game codes. But also they're going to have in-game promos for the comic. So you're going to have quests that will get you cutscenes that lead up to the comic, or codes in the game that you need the comic to complete. Stuff like that. So it will be driving customers through the game to buy the book. Jamie Lee Curtis is getting into the comic book game, fresh off of the last Halloween, with Mother Nature. It's a horror book, and she's going to be out doing press and stuff for that. So fingers crossed you can book her. Huh?
You're going to pull a Keanu and actually be in it to win it?
I don't know, but I totally have the contact of the person I needed to contact to try and book her.
All right.
So,
he's my hero.
Like you mentioned, is she going to be like, I would love to see more and more of the celebrity creators getting more involved. We've seen many come in and just disappear after issue number 1. But it'd be nice to see them stick around, try to promote their book, not just use it as a jumping on point to basically say, hey, here's a story I'm trying to pitch to producers. Here, read it and let's see where it goes. Like you mentioned, Keanu did a great job with Berserker, and he's promoting. What are they on issue number 8, 9 right now? And he's still promoting the book.
For a 10.
Yep.
Right, and they actually invoked his name. In saying that he really has set the model now for Hollywood celebrities who want to make comics on how they need to do it.
And even if they are just making the comic just to promote their story to producers, it's still a good idea to follow through with it, right? Not just one and done and hey, it was an idea.
It doesn't take too much, right? It just takes, hey, I'm being interviewed on a bunch of different places as I'm promoting this. To mention that it's a comic book, they can get it at comic book shops, takes 2 lines and makes us love you forever.
Correct. The last thing they mentioned during the Titan Comics portion, They mentioned a ton of new Doctor Who stuff.
Of
Tons of new Doctor Who stuff. But that they now have the Conan the O'Brien, the Barbarian license. Which I'll be honest, I was shocked that that's where it went. I thought for sure Nick would be selling my blood and his, trying to get that license.
Didn't they already have it before?
I don't know that Dynamite ever has.
Because that license has gone around a lot, and I'm surprised Marvel let it go out again. You know, it's a drop in the bucket.
But they're launching that July of 2023.
Okay.
Was all they could really say. And then the last group that presented was a company called Visiate Entertainment. And it's Kevin Van Horn, co-creator of Bloodshot.
Okay.
He is their, I guess, U.S. guy. They're based in Jakarta, Indonesia.
Okay.
And what they're doing is they're really an IP farm. But what they want to do is develop some of their stories into comics to soften the ground, I guess, with Southeast Asian stories. So having scriptwriters write them as comics before they try and develop them into movies for that market. And because they're comics, they're a little more universal. They're going to start with 2 titles in the spring and then slowly build to the point where they have 6 titles out. And they have some really interesting concepts that I don't really want to dig too deep into, but a bunch of all ages stuff, especially all ages kaiju and some all ages Indonesian kind of concepts, Indonesian history kind of concepts. So that'll be fun. The lunch presentation started off with Chris Powell really kind of giving the state of the diamond world.
Okay.
And there's some roadmap things that I want to mention. 2023 will be 35 years of previews.
That's incredible.
Which, right. Comic Shop Locator was founded in 1996. So that's coming up on a big anniversary. Previews World is 15 years in 2023, the website. And 2022, this year, was 20 years of Free Comic Book Day. They announced some back-end stuff that you guys may be very interested in, but that's not it's stuff that's not really interesting to everybody. Like, I have notes here about Shopify integration.
They've had that for a long time.
Yeah, but they're expanding it to... they're expanding it to more than just Shopify, so more turnkey e-commerce platforms.
Okay.
So instead of forcing people to Shopify, they can use some of the other ones.
Well, did they say they're developing an API, or did they? Okay. We asked them this about 4 years ago, and not to put anybody down or anything. Their tech guy basically, looked at us like,
Yeah, no, they're developing it so that I think they're going to roll it out kind of platform by platform here initially, and then launch a full-on API that you can integrate. So,
yeah,
but Diamond.
I was going to say, with all the different point of sale systems out there and the ones that are coming out next year, it'd be a great resource for Diamond to provide APIs for. So yeah, that's a good thing that they're doing that.
No, that was about as close as they came to getting a standing ovation, I'll be honest. Okay. Diamond handles 1.07 million pieces of individual product a month.
Shoot.
Still. 900,000 new releases per month. And 170,000 reorders with a damage rate of less than 1%. And the caveat they gave to this, and I wrote it in big block letters, that damage rate that can be proved it was Diamond's fault.
Not you.
There's some other stuff in here that I wrote down just so I can send to you guys, and about some of the other opportunities they're providing that will be damage proof or less damages.
Okay.
Including bringing back some of the old school methodologies they had in the old days, where you go to a place and they're handing you your stuff right off of their semi instead of having to hand it off to UPS or USPS. Yeah.
I volunteer in a warehouse.
Right. Like there's some stuff there. Something they did mention, and this is something that I think is worth it for the fans who are hearing this to hear, is that with the cost of everything in the world increasing, Diamond is not increasing their margin. So
I question that.
Well, so what they're saying is they're not charging publishers more or retailers more for the product. They're having to charge more for the adjusted prices that retailers are charging, or that publishers are charging, and that their suppliers are charging. So where the prices are changing, like if they were making 50% before, they're still making 50%.
Understandable, but I question that on the basis that I think they're, again, and this is not no secret, but they've got profitability written into the shipping charges. Wherein
right. Like they're talking about on product, not on services.
Okay.
So like if they were making 50% on something before and it's gone up 3%, they're only making 47% now. Which I'm like, that doesn't really seem like that big of a savings passed along, if I'm being honest.
It's not.
Right. No, it's what they were saying was that because they're doing that in areas where they recognize that retailers are hurting, in that books cost more than they used to, just off the printer. They may have to be making some cuts in other areas, and this is kind of that wink and a nod that Retailer Summit may not come with an open bar next year. Like talking about doing cost benefit analysis on some of the things that we all enjoy, but that aren't really necessary.
And that could be a few $1 million, because I have seen retailers drink. So,
and it wasn't like it was all like donated local stuff this year. They had some big name, like nice booze. Anyway, there's some other stuff here that, like, again, it's you and Jen stuff that I don't know that everybody else would be interested in, about some other things they're adding to their services. But I will send those on to you. And then there was the Dark Horse, which we kind of talked about already. Dogu and Albatross Funny Books. They announced The Ones by Brian Michael Bendis, which is his newest thing. But the big thing I wrote down was the launch of the View Askew-niverse. Kevin Smith is bringing the Quick Stop to Dark Horse.
Is that another imprint he's doing, or is that just publishing books under the Dark Horse imprint?
That was all they said. They literally said that line. Like, I don't think they can talk about, I don't think it was one of those things they could really talk about when they made their video. They sent in, and then more details have since been announced.
Yeah.
Source Point Press, I'm going to read my notes as I wrote them. Source Point Press, speaker, that one ginger guy. 12/5 will be their
one
10-year
ginger.
anniversary.
Travis,
Yeah,
word.
it was Travis. But, like I wrote that one ginger guy. By the way, Travis shaved his beard and he looks like I've said this to his face 4 times. Slightly chubby General Custer or slightly ginger Colonel Sanders.
By the way, we're all friends with Travis and we're giving him happy purpose. You don't have to like message him and say, "Oh my gosh."
No. Like he was going as, I forget who he's going as, Teddy Roosevelt from Night at the Museum for Halloween. Like, that was the point.
Or the costume.
Yeah, he shaved it for his Halloween costume.
Man,
Like Garrett had shaved and had this kind of porn stash thing going because he was going as Hopper for Halloween.
Okay.
I haven't seen Travis in person since before the pandemic. And man, either he's gained a little bit of weight since then.
No, he's actually down. But like I said, this is slightly. He actually looked really good. He's been working out with Garrett Gunn, so like, nice. Good on those guys. They did announce a 3-book deal with Cullen Bunn.
Woohoo!
And then I put a bracket here, a little thing, and it says stuff we already know. But it's stuff that we already know because they're our friends. Which is that they spun off Deepwater Games and it's no longer part of the Oxeye Media family in the same way. But SourcePoint Games is coming soon, and they will be working with mainstream games manufacturers to up and downstream on games. So one of the companies they partner with is Cool Mini or Not, and a couple of others to make comic books related to their narrative games, and vice versa. Games based on narrative comic books, narrative games based on narrative comic books. The one they're pushing, and it's a license everybody knows they have, but they're pushing it out a little ways, Pandemic. Because as it turns out, people don't relate the word pandemic with a fun party game anymore.
Yeah.
Discouraging because that is still a great game.
You guys ever won? Ever?
Huh?
Have you ever won a pandemic?
Well, I mean, it depends on the group, right? I mean, it's a co-op game, so if the group is willing to win, yeah, you can definitely win that game.
Yeah. Then the last thing at lunch, and I will say this, I will give an overall kind of temperature gauge here for Retailer Summit. Up to this point, it's kind of felt like that thing where you're at a funeral, but you're not sure, like, if maybe somebody's ex is going to show up and it's going to get super exciting, or if it's just going to be kind of sad, or if it's going to turn out to be a fun funeral. Like, you don't know, right? It's just this real unease.
And then boom came?
No.
No. Dan.
Somebody better.
Dan.
I wasn't there, so.
Frank Miller walks on stage and spends 45 minutes, or spends his whole time busting Dan's chops. Just wrecking him. But Dan gets up and goes, "Hi, I'm Dan DiDio. You remember me as that guy you used to hate? Hopefully you don't still." And he goes, "And I promise that I won't do what I did in the old days and just read you solicitations." Oh, wait, that guy's not here. Like, just boom, stand up. It was Laurel and Hardy from the first minute. But they talked more about Ronin. They talked about Ancient Enemies. That's Dan's writing. They talked about how for those 2 books in particular, this is the rule. Other books they will evaluate, but right now it's their plan for everything. They're going to only do one variant. It's a 1 in 25. It's a virgin wraparound Frank Miller piece of art.
Okay.
That's it. Otherwise, it's the A cover.
And they did show it today. They finally got the color on it.
Yep. Frank is collaborating on every book. Ronin will be bi-monthly, and so will Ancient Enemies. And they have massive page counts. Yeah. Like 56 pages.
and that's something to keep in mind as well. That brings us a higher price point. It's basically you're buying 2 books in one, and you're paying for 2 books in one.
Right. I think they said $7.99.
Yep,
And the
in
first
North.
book will be 64 pages at $7.99, and then it'll bump down to 56 pages at $7.99, something like that.
Which, by all means, 64 pages is a lot to get for $8.
Yeah, I thought it was reasonable.
The downfall is that $8 hurts the pocketbook much more than $4.
Right.
Or
But it's
$4.
only every other month, so it's really only $4
Exactly.
a month. So, I mean, I spent $8 on coffee this morning, so I feel like, I could afford a Frank Miller, but there will be some intermittent every month books as it relates to Ancient Aliens, but those will be at a smaller size and a lower price point. They showed art from Pandora, which is the Frank Miller, Emma Kubert book that is just beautiful. They're partnering with Svengoolie to do a Svengoolie comic. If you don't know Svengoolie, he is like an Elvira type, except that it's all ages horror. And he makes dad jokes in between segments. It's pretty great. Huge viewership on that show. But they're going to do a book in May of next year and a book in October of next year with him. And they will be on the show promoting the book.
Okay.
So that there'll be good marketing. And I buried the lead.
Oh.
2 new Sin Cities.
Yep.
Sin City Blood and Dust in April of next year, which is as close as you're going to get to an origin of that universe, which is drawn by Frank, written by Frank. And that's always kind of been his line on Sin City, right? Nobody else will ever write or draw it but him. And that was true for like 5 more minutes. Because they've announced Sin City Meeting of the Maestros, written by Frank and drawn by Milo Manara.
There's only so much
August
Frank can do,
2023.
man.
It's true. But he said that Milo basically came up to him and said, write me a Sin City. And Frank goes, you know what? Yeah, okay. Like it's the artist he would want to do it if he couldn't, is kind of the line he gave. And the other thing that they said, and I have already convinced Dan to think about this concept, no digital, only print copies of these books.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, can you reconsider the digital? And he goes, for what purpose? I go, oh, just to send to people so they can read and review. Like, watermark the crap out of them. Don't publish them digitally. Can you at least send me review copies so I can talk about it on the air?
I mean, is digital really that big of an issue still? I mean, why is
they're kind of drawing a line of they want product that they can put in local comic book shops and push people to local comic shops. And Frank made a joke that he goes, look, if I can't read it, if I can't open it and read it, we're not going to make it. And Dan goes, get out your phone. And Frank goes, what phone?
Oh, no.
He should have pulled out a flip phone and say, yeah, what do you want me to do with this?
Right. It was kind of that kind of thing. Then at dinner, this is my dinner notes page.
Oh, there's so many.
We don't have enough time for your dinner notes, man.
However, I did record all the dinner presentations.
Nice.
Because I was asked by all of them to record their dinner presentations. Every publisher who spoke at dinner, I was asked by them to record their dinner presentation. So I have the video of the Boom presentation, I have the video of the Dynamite presentation, and I have the video of the Mad Cave presentation. The other people who spoke at dinner were Bink, and they had some big, really, really impressive, really touching information about how much Bink has done and some of the new stuff they're doing. So, but the big thing that I will mention here, Boom has negotiated with Diamond for on Boom product alone, at least at this point, you're getting 5% back on shipping. they're giving you a 3% discount automatically on shipping, and then another 2% on shipping and 3% on reorders. So essentially, it's 5% back on shipping over Boom products.
On reorders, not on initial orders.
I don't.
Well,
it's in the video, so I didn't write it down.
The way reorders basically work is anytime you reorder something through Diamond, they charge you a 3%.
Right, that's gone,
and that's what they're. But I thought Boom had already eliminated 2%.
That. Well, that's confirmed now, but then they added the 2% on all orders.
Yeah, to cover the shipping costs, which have
and then he announced some like product and stuff, and people were real happy. But like the shipping stuff basically got them out of their seats. Like it doesn't seem like a lot, but yay!
It points out that they're listening. That publishers, because we've even said it on our show where some retailers experience up to 40-50% of their invoice on shipping costs, and that makes no sense whatsoever.
Right. The Dynamite presentation was kind of what we expected from Dynamite. There was really no big announcements there. There was some screenshots of Barbarella, or not some screenshots, some set photos of Barbarella. And I don't know if they were set photos or if they were just like casting photo.
I was hoping that we get to see some the Red Sonja.
No, only because, and I think the way they kind of put it is they just don't have the footage to show. Nick has seen it, but it's not like.
And it's also not their property, right? They just have licensing to it. I don't know if they would get the rights to show the videos and stuff.
Right. And then Mad Cave had a great presentation, and he kind of recapped it on Jen's show today. Dan DiDio was the keynote speaker, where he kind of. Were either of you there when Neil Gaiman gave the Tulip speech in '93?
No.
Okay. He gave his version of that. Where knowing Dynamite was following him, he chided the industry for too many variant covers. Or Dynamite was following him, he chided the industry for too many variant covers. He called out DC for stuff, and he goes, "If I'd have known that they'd fix it after I left, I'd have told them to F off years ago." Like he gave him some credit for doing some things right, but he chided them for other things. He really did get up and kind of gospel preach at people from his perspective, his very unique perspective in this industry. But he left everybody with a lot of hope. And I will say that's what happened at lunch, right? Like it started off feeling funeral-y, and by the end of the day, it felt like there was a breath of air to all of these people, right? Like there's some stuff to legitimately be excited about. And while there's still a lot more challenges than were addressed, there are some things that are legitimately exciting happening and stuff to be really excited about. So it went from feeling kind of down to feeling kind of up. And that made me happy because, you guys know it, same as I did going in. There were people who were there because they're like, I'm just here because I bought a seat on the Titanic. They were there to put the nail in the coffin. And because of the work of people like Frank Miller Presents and Philip Stablik at Boom Studios and Chris over at Mad Cave and the Source Point guys and some of these other people who are doing good work and giving them a reason to be excited, it felt like maybe you had found a door to float on. Like if this really is, but there's a bright spot at the end. There's hope at the end. So I was really pleased with that.
That's one thing about our industry. There's always a bright spot at the end.
Right.
You can always see the light. We've been through turmoil for what, last 30 years, 40 years? we're still around. We're probably going to be around for another 30, 40 years. It may not be the same faces. It may not be the same everything, but comic books will be around for a long time.
Mhm.
It's true. You know, and it was great. I will say this: it was great to see people I haven't seen in years. It was great to see people like Stewart, who spent years at DC, who's at Diamond now, and just
Stewart was at Dynamite. I'm sorry. I guess he is at Dynamite.
he's at
Sorry.
Diamond. To hear the joy in his voice at a retailer summit, like, because I can remember going to retailer summit and he just felt beat down at the end.
Mhm.
Like, okay, I'm here. And then Steve Jeppy gets up at the beginning of dinner and talks, you know, and kind of talks about how, look, I get it. Sometimes I'm the bad guy, or I have to be the bad guy, or it feels like I'm the bad guy. But I really am always just trying to do what's right. And if you don't like what I'm doing, please just tell me and we'll talk about it. You know, he and I had a great conversation about who to bet in the playoffs of Major League Baseball,
Mhm.
and how we both came to the conclusion that we probably shouldn't because, well, it really could go either way and you're definitely going to lose.
Dude, it's the Cowboys winning the home run derby.
It's true. You know, but like it was a good conversation to have that, like, let's not talk about comics for a minute and talk about something we're both passionate about, which is baseball.
Wrestling.
And then,
Wrestling.
well, he's into baseball. So I talked about wrestling with a lot
I'm sure.
That was the most I heard Shanice say all weekend is when we were sitting around talking about wrestling.
Oh, if you get her started on wrestling, she will not stop talking. She loves
it. Was super fun. I met a lot of great retailers that I'd never met before. You know, I've been going to these things since 2013,
Mm-hmm.
and people I'd never met before, either new retailers or retailers that now see the value of going to Retailer Summit, who used to not, or, you know, whatever that calculus is that they did. Oh, it's in Baltimore, so it's closer to where I'm at. Whereas in Chicago, all those years, it was too far, or whatever, you know. And I got to make some really good connections there with some retailers that have been in it for a while, and some guys who are new, and talk to people about what we do at the experience. And by the way, I've developed a new pitch for the experience that is as slick as if you've ever seen Henri Compen try and sell his book in Artist Alley. Like, my new pitch for the experience is like 18 words, and I can say it in 6.5 seconds.
You cannot compete with Henri, man. The way he sells books, man, there's no way.
I spent the whole weekend with the guy. I'm going to tell the story. I had to kind of give him I had to produce his real life for a minute instead of just being his show producer, and tell him he needs to slow down his pitch. And he goes, "Why?" I go, "Trust me, you're going to need to slow down your pitch." And the very next pitch, he goes to set his laptop down because he had people sign up for his mailing list. Sets it right on top of his coffee cup that he hadn't completely closed after the last pitch, and spilled coffee all over issues 3 and 4 of his book. Luckily, he had more. But it's like, and he goes, "Why did you tell me to slow down?" I go, "Because I knew you hadn't put the lid on your coffee." And then he goes, and then I go, "The very next one, you weren't watching where you set your laptop, and you ruined 10 or 15 copies of your book."
Poor guy.
He goes, "Oh, you're right. I got to slow down a little bit." I go, "At least watch where you're setting stuff."
Right.
But I tell you, we hung out every night with an incredibly diverse group of independent creators and legends and people who make manga and people who are retailers, and just this Artist Alley scavenger hunt we did. I don't know that it was the big commercial success I would have loved it to be, but what it was it was a huge success for the people who participated, and it allowed us to broaden our horizons so much as individuals. I talked to a guy named Frank who just did a variant cover on Vanish by Donny Cates and Ryan Stegman, who came in from Israel.
Nice.
Wow.
And wanted to participate in the scavenger hunt. So he had to bring extra stuff with him from Israel to participate. But he's like, I wanted to meet more people, and this seemed like a way to do it, and it was. You know, I met a guy named Felipe who is from Brazil. He barely spoke any English, but man, we had a 25-minute conversation about Batman.
I think I know who you're talking about.
It's one of those things, like, there's a universal language in this business.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter who you are, how many years you've been doing it, what your position, what your spot is. At the end of the day, we all are just there to talk about people who wear their underwear on the outside and fly around. Or zombies or vampires or whatever you're into, but we're all there for the same thing. And Retailer Summit, Comics Pro, these kind of places are the only places you get to do that isn't a local comic shop. And I sent a big long text to Jen and Nick, like, Saturday night, I'm sitting emotionally drained in bed. I sent them a big long text about how happy I was and how great everything was going. And it really was a moment that reminded me why I'm here, you know? So I will say this, Diamond may have some work to do. The industry has a lot of work to do for sure, but the passion is no less there than it ever was. So
I do want to add, you know, I know we pick on Diamond a lot, but overall they have done as much for the industry as anybody else.
Steve Jepp even made a joke that if he thought it would help, he'd bring back Capital.
Well, I don't know. It seems like we're getting that route already, right?
Right, but he goes, if he thought it would help retailers, he would bring back Capital. I'm going, oh, that's a funny joke for like 8 people in this room who are old enough to remember it.
Right.
I know. Come on. How many of us were with Capital? I need my I can't remember what the printing paper is. It was like green lined stuff.
Dot matrix
put
paper?
Together. Yeah.
Dot matrix paper, yes. So
I can smell it. Right now I can smell it even.
Well, I had a conversation with some merchandising people at Diamond. Some of the people who handle like Diamond Select toys and stuff. And I go, you know how they have artisan soaps and candles and stuff? Diamond needs to start manufacturing those that are new comic warehouse smell and old comic smell. And they go, what? And I go, yeah, I don't know that it would actually translate, but like, I know that I would buy old comic paper smelling candles.
No, you know, that would basically take every single comic book store out of business, because that's the reason why everybody actually goes to the comic book store. So we can.
It's true. I will say, just anyway, this was the first convention hall I ever went into where the smell of fish outweighed the smell of nacho cheese.
Ooh.
Well, because the one restaurant there was serving crab cakes. And that was the restaurant closest to Artist Alley, which is where I was. I'm like, why does it smell like cheesy fish in here? But no, it was a great time, and I'm glad I went. So
that's awesome.
I don't know. We really have time to talk about new books that are in stores this week.
No, we spent a lot of time on comics, so unless if you have something that's like the one thing that you really, really, really want to.
Well, you know who my best friends were at Retailer Summit. Brainy, you got pictures. There are 2 books from those guys this week. Two new books from The Best Idea in Comics, Bad Idea. So, and by the best idea in comics, I mean Dinesh bought me some shrimp to get me to say that. So
that bastard. Where's my shrimp? He sends me an exclusive, but no shrimp.
I don't know if they would have traveled. So
does he live in LA?
I don't know that the shrimp would have traveled.
Yeah, but he lives in LA. He could have bought me shrimp here.
Anyway. So. Oh, I need to read the thing, don't I?
Read us out.
It's going to be super fun on my phone where I can't actually do this. So I'm just going to guess. Thank you for watching Nerd News Now, part of the Kingdom of Geekdom on Woodlands Online, sponsored by the Adventure Begins Comics and Games and Space Cadets Collection. Check out other shows like insert names here, Justin.
In Between the Trees.
Right. In Between the Trees and the Adventure Begins show and other ones. You can now watch our shows on KVQT HD21 over the air on your television, or you could search and add Roku. You can search and add Woodlands Online to your Roku streaming network. Also, podcasts everywhere there are podcasts. This has been the worst one of these reads I've ever done, but I'm doing it from memory. So we will see everybody next time on Nerd News Now.